Hello and welcome to Terraria Completionism. Here what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about light shows and wire builds. In particular, this is covering the kinds of wire builds that I have in the game in greater detail than I do when I just tour the different areas. So what I have here, it's kind of dark now, but you can tell there's this light show. It's essentially just a sequence of timers where each timer will turn on a set of lights. And in this case, a set of lights is just one Gemspark block. This is an example to show it off. All that happens when I hit the lever is this blue wire is pulsed. It turns on the first timer and the last timer. I'll actually show it off right here. It'll turn off the first timer and the last timer, and it'll turn on this Gemspark block. Now, whenever two timers are on like that, on the next tick, one of the timers is going to pulse before the other one. It's going to turn off the first timer. I think it's usually the one that's farther away from the source, the lever. It's going to turn off the first timer, and it's going to turn off the Gemspark block, but because there's a green wire, it's going to pulse this timer here and also turn on this Gemspark block. Then in the next tick, this timer is now on. It's going to turn off this timer, turn off this block, and then turn on the next timer, and so on and so forth. It's just going to cycle like that from right to left, as so. This is probably one of the easiest things to build in Terraria as far as wires are concerned. And it's pretty simple, but there's actually something a bit more elaborate that I've done with light shows that I'll show off near the end. So anyway, and to turn it off, you have to hit the lever when the first and last timers are on, as originally. Now, in the party tree section, I showed off this nightclub area, and here you have exactly that. It's a light show that cycles from the top row goes from the outside to the inside, and the bottom row goes from inside to outside, and they're coded by color. So the blue wire will turn on white Gemspark on the edges and in the middle. Then you're gonna get red on the edges and in the middle, and basically the order is reversed. What's up here, the colors that show up on the inside here are showing up on the outside here, and this is what the actual wiring looks like. There's no junction boxes or anything interesting like that, and I'm just gonna reverse it to show you what that looks like as well, because basically if I cut the blue wire that allows the very end timer to activate the very beginning timer, it'll just bounce back and forth. And when it bounces back and forth, I can put the wire back, the joining wire back, and now it's going to run in the opposite direction. So now this part up here is running from inside out, and this part here is running from outside in. And that's what you get here. It's exactly the same design as above, and I've added some wire bulbs just to show you what's on. You also want to alternate wire colors in the middle, because if you don't, then a single timer is going to turn on all the lights at once, and you don't want that. That's why you have to alternate wire colors in the middle. So this is kind of like this is kind of a difficult one. This was before junction boxes were made that I made this, so it kind of doesn't cycle. It kind of doesn't look, the wiring is a little too elaborate than it should be. But anyway, that's sort of a light show that's harder than it should be. Light shows are pretty easy to make. Now I'm gonna go show another one that's in the snow biome real quick. I'm just gonna hop on the rail here and go. And it's a good thing that I'm doing this at nighttime, because the light shows look a lot better during nighttime. Basically, that's what you do. You just set up the timers and then let the lights cycle through, and it looks pretty interesting. You can make all kinds of very elaborate designs. I chose to do it very simply. The nightclub is essentially the only one, as well as the light orb that we have right here. I'm going to show this. And it's the same exact principle. There's timers are just set up vertically here, and you can see the wire. If I hit the blue here, turns on the bottom one and the top one, and it turns on the Gemsparks in the middle. Then you get green, red, green, red, green cycling through, and then there's the next layer, the next layer, the next layer. So yeah, I mean, it's pretty easy to make. There's not much you could screw up here. And as you can see, this I'm actually I like this wire build much more. I like this light show because of how the sort of the colors combo together, the way that the glass looks with the Gemspark, the way they light up the other colored Gemspark when the previous ones are off, like when you hit the orange layer right here and the green layer, the way the inside, the off layers look when, you know, one of those layers is on. It looks very interesting, especially that green and purple. You know, the way it lights up the inside when the green and purple turns on. Really, really cool. Anyway, so there's a few more things kind of like that in the world, but you know, you get the idea. You know, those are the two best ones, I'd say. The Light Orb down there and the Midnight Confetti Block Nightclub. Now I'm going to show you, I'm going to go over to Hallowton right here where there is another one. Now this light show is a little different. Basically the idea here is it's a fountain and the Gemspark, the Gemspark blocks light up the water. So what happens when the orange ones turn on, it makes all the water orange, then purple, yellow, so on and so forth, and they cycle through all the colors. Now, the other thing about this one, the two I showed previously are manual. This one is automatic. It turns off during the day and it turns on at night because I have a sensor right here, a night sensor and a day sensor that turn it on and off. So I'm going to explain how this one works. Essentially, you have the two sensors hit this timer, and you can also manually hit it with a switch. Now, it's a 5-second timer, and I'll explain why it's 5 seconds in the middle, but in a minute. But essentially what it does is the timer will send out a pulse every 5 seconds along this blue wire, and it'll hit this faulty gate. It'll hit this faulty gate, or if gate. It'll hit both the faulty lamp and the normal lamp underneath it. And what happens when there's the two lamps are hit like that is they're both procced at once, but because of how the faulty lamp works, it checks if the lamp underneath it is on or not. So if when the 5-second timer sends a pulse, if the normal lamp is off, the normal lamp will turn on and the faulty lamp will do the check right afterwards. So it'll turn the lamp on, then it'll do the check, it'll figure out that the lamp is on, and so the gate will send a pulse. Whereas if the faulty lamp is on, then the timer is going to turn the normal lamp off, and the faulty lamp is then going to do the check. It's going to find that the lamp is off. It's not going to do anything. So basically, the idea of that is to just make sure that every other signal is suppressed. You know, so this whole thing just sends out a pulse every 10 seconds rather than every 5. And I needed that because it takes roughly 10 seconds for the entire thing to cycle through. So it takes 10 seconds for it to go from top to bottom, and then another pulse is sent as it starts turning off. Just as it finishes, it starts turning off, and then takes another 10 seconds before it starts turning on again. It's like that so that it doesn't, so that the fountain doesn't start turning off as some of the colors at the top are still turning on. Basically, that was the idea there. Now, what the gate itself procs is it's going to hit these dart traps right here, and it's actually probably easier for me to show what on the map what's actually happening here. Now all this yellow stuff, this is a giant pool of honey, and the darts are slowed down in the honey, and that's the way you get the timing here, because there's no timers in this. These dart traps turn on every single light, but because the honey slows down the trajectory of the dart, it takes a while for it to hit the teal pressure pad on the other end that's supposed to hit and activate the light up above. So the dart trap at the very top activates the orange lights instantly. The one underneath that, this distance, it takes about 7 seconds. It takes about 1 second for it to turn on the next one. I think this was like tested or something. It's something. It's like around. I can measure. It's never mind. It's like 20 blocks or something, but it takes approximately 1 second. And so these are the ones. This is the next second. It's going to be the yellow light. This is the next second. It's going to be the blue light. Up here, it's going to be the green light. This one's red, and the very one at the end is white. And they're all equidistant to make sure that each layer of the fountain turns on at the right time. And so that's what you have up here. So you can tell from the wiring, we'll let the yellow color show right here, these are all the pressure pads that are hidden underground, and the dart traps will hit them and turn on that layer as we move our way up. And why is it not turning on? Oh, because it's daytime actually. It's 5 a.m. But I could just turn it on again. So yeah, that's the thing. The daylight sensor triggered and then it turned off the timer, and so the whole thing turned off. But that's how this thing works. So this is another more sort of elaborate kind of light show. You could do things like this as well. You could do all kinds of fancy things just by delaying the amount of time it takes for the trigger to happen. With the 1 second timer, you have that, which is, you know, simple enough by having a suppressed sort of signal from a faulty lamp. You can extend the time to 10 seconds. And that's essentially what the point of this is. Also, I know that as soon as a cycle starts, I can just turn off the timer, and I know that all the other lights are going to turn off, because it just takes a while for the darts to travel across the honey. So I know that as soon as the first layer turns off here, I can turn off the whole mechanism, and I know for a fact that the others are definitely going to turn off as well. Yeah, so this random pirate invasion wasn't planned or anything. So yeah, that's basically it. I also have a manual trigger right here, so I just don't have to go down there. And yeah, that's basically it. And thanks for watching, and I'll be back and I'll explain some of the other crazier wire builds in the world in greater detail next time. Farewell. Cheers.